Yeah, we're setting the stage right here. We already have the cards on the table. I know you guys probably can't see that because of the angle, but we got our players ready, so let's not wait any longer and bring those guys in. On the right-hand side, which is the red corner, we got Usman Mannan. Come on over here, please. Usman, how you doing?
Fine, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing quite fine myself. It's the last round, so I'm like ready to get out of here, to be honest. So it's been a long day for you. How has your day gone? You started with a loss, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I was under Gozen match and then sided 15 cards game 3 and I saw my garnet.
Okay.
I didn't see any of the side deck cards. None of the side deck cards I saw. 15 and I didn't see one.
All right, so rough start into the day, but you basically climbed back. How did you do that?
Basically, I'm playing a completely off-the-wall deck, as you see, and basically I need, one of the lessons I need to learn is cope with losing, because YCS Utrecht, I lost round 1 due to a bunch of misplays, so I just tilted and lost so many of my games where I should have won. So just be happy after losing, laugh at seeing your garnet. And Tom Rose gave me some really good advice. If you can cope with losing, start coping with winning.
I would 100% agree. I think this is one of the hardest lessons to learn, and it's one of the big difference makers between being a good duelist and being a legendary duelist, if you want to call it that. All right, so how are you feeling about having the feature match right now?
I asked Tom, and I'm very grateful for him. But yeah, it's I'm playing an off-the-wall deck. No one else in the room is playing it.
So you wanted to have a feature match?
Yes, even if I lose, it's fine.
All right. So aren't you getting nervous with the bright lights and playing on the stage and all of that?
Well, I've been here for the 4th time now, and last time I got FTK'd, and now it's an FTK format, so I'm kind of expecting it at the same time. So it's whatever, really.
All right. So you've seen the worst, but you're hoping for the best today. This seems like a good approach.
Chill.
All right. Please have a seat in the red chair. And his opponent is going to be Anthony Allsop in the blue corner. Anthony, hi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, thanks.
You also had a bit of a rough start into the tournament. If I remember correctly, your round 1 opponent was...
Jay Quincy, yeah.
Jay Quincy, yeah. One of the better players from the UK. He's doing quite well as far as I remember. So how did you recover from that loss?
I just played against a lot of good matchups, I think, really, yeah. And, I don't know, just did the normal thing. I don't normally do quite badly at a lot of... at the beginnings of a lot of events, so normally it takes a few rounds to stabilize. So.
Right. So you didn't go into the tournament having the expectation that you're making day 2, or what was your expectation leading into it?
I went in kind of looking at the top. I'm kind of playing on my 3rd choice deck right now, so so I'm just doing the best I can really with what I have.
You're both doing a stellar job, undervaluing yourself, guys. Yeah. But you're now on the bubble. If you win this match, you're definitely in day 2, and you got a very good shot at still advancing to the top 32. How does that feel?
Well, I've bubbled 3 events before. My first kind of top was nationals, and that was the last event I played at. So I guess this is kind of, it's just kind of par for the course at this point, really. Yeah.
And how are you feeling about having the feature match?
I had a couple at nationals the last 2 years, so it's a little bit different because there's a bit of a more high quality setup, but it's not that different. It's the same sort of feeling, really.
All right. Both of these guys seem to be feeling comfortable. Please have a seat in the blue chair. Right. Both of our players are about ready to get their game on. We're going to perform the die roll to see who goes first with these guys. So please have a go at it. So Anthony rolls another 6. We've seen so many 6s today. And Usman counters it with a 5. Close, but no cigar. Are you going first?
Yeah.
Yes. Anthony wants to go first. All right, that's all the information from the table. Let's say, guys, to Dom Galizia and Tom Payne for the last time today.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to round 8. And yes, we're going to take a closer look at those previous matchups for Usman and Anthony. So we're going to just look up at Usman's match history. So let's bring that up for you. And we can see that, yes, he's lost the first game there to Daniel Ratcliffe. He's then won against Luke Ogleve. A lot of UK flags here for Usman. He then loses a second time, so his tiebreakers might not necessarily be so strong, Tom.
No, but I think in an 11-round event, I think a lot of the X2s will top. So I think maybe it's definitely still worth playing it out to give yourself the best chances. Well, I think it's definitely still possible to top in an 11-round event with an X2 record.
And then as you can see from round 4, he goes on a winning streak. We know that both of these guys are on the bubble.
On the bubble.
They need to win. They want to win. Let's bring up the next matches, starting with round 5. As you can see, he then wins against a stun deck, that could catch him off guard as well. So he done well.
A lot of people off guard.
Yes.
You know, it caught me off guard when I was bringing up the choices of deck to put into the deck breakdown, because I'd forgotten about it, but then we put it in. So it definitely would have caught me off guard because I didn't put it in the initial decks to consider.
Yeah, and then so he's done well really. Since round 4, he's on a bit of a win streak, and I'm guessing that's going to hold him in good stead for the current matchup. Let's go and have a look at
Anthony.
And we can see that Anthony, after that first matchup against Jake Quincy, he then gets.
He lost round 4, so he also lost rounds, quite early rounds too. But he's still going at it. He must have won his last bunch of rounds.
Indeed. So the tiebreakers here are probably a little bit low for both of them, but they're again moving on. They both are on a bit of a win streak now, so this should be a close matchup for them.
Yeah. We haven't actually seen Sky Striker.
We haven't seen it, no, not yet.
So Anthony with the Sky Striker and Usman with something that is firmly in the other category.
Indeed.
And I don't really know what it is.
We're about to find out.
So I'm quite looking forward to it, yeah.
Without further ado, let's head on over to the match table.
So we got Anthony with the opportunity to go first. Playing a fairly run-of-the-mill Sky Striker deck. 3 Twin Twisters in the main deck for the anticipated mirror matches, along with the Solemn Strike. So Solemn Strike's a card you should definitely be feeling good about when you get to go first, because it's so powerful when you get to go first. When you've got it in your opening hand on the first turn, that's really what you want to see. So we can in fact see it. I'm
seeing a lot of different cards here. I saw a glow-up bowl in
some old school cards.
Yeah, glow-up bowl, Pot of Avarice. It looked, or Pot of Desire. Sorry.
I quite like looking at Anthony's hand.
Archlord Christian.
If you didn't know what deck he was playing, he's just got the most generic hand of cards. Upstart, Twin Twisters, 2 Pot, and a Solemn Strike. Could be anything.
Yeah, he wastes no time activating the upstart. He's straight off.
Best
looking
card
for
in the
more,
game, you know.
Looking for more cards.
It's still now it looks like a Metalfoe deck.
Yeah, there's no monsters yet.
He is only running 6, and 3 of them are Ash. So he does really need to actually hit some go cards off this Pot of Desires, to be honest.
So what's he looking to make the hand live, Tom?
So he's looking for ideally a copy of Ray, Reinforcement of the Army, or Engage.
Okay.
And I guess we'll see what those cards are, but some way of getting to his Sky Striker Link engine. And he doesn't look like he's got that. So he's got the opportunity to draw an extra card, because he can use multi-roll to send Metalfoe's Fusion to the graveyard. But other than that, it's a bit weak. And I guess we'll see. This draw could kind of make or break the hand.
Okay.
So he can also draw into the field spell, which would give him an extra shot at drawing. Did he just draw the Metalfoe's Fusion off the Metalfoe's Fusion? That's pretty unfortunate.
So not what he wanted to see.
Definitely not. I mean, he's got plenty of defense. Drawing the double Pot of Desires always feels a little bit sad, because you can't really afford to activate the second Pot of Desires, especially in the Sky Striker deck, because you could very easily banish too many of your resources that you need to win the game. So
Usman, moving on to Usman's turn, he drops the
summons the strike just ended his turn.
Yeah, basically. That Phantom Sky Blaster, quickly we saw the strike respond to it.
Yeah. So he's going to basically use the... Oh, he drew the field spell. this time. So
One of the ones you were saying, yes.
yeah, I mean, it's not perfect because it's not necessarily one of the cards you need, but it lets you look at some more cards which might be one of the cards you need. Now he's got to decide whether he wants the Widow Anchor or the Shark Cannon. Chooses the Widow Anchor, seems fair enough. I mean, he's already got a Widow Anchor, but more Widow Anchors, probably not a bad thing. More defense.
Pretty impressive card.
It is a pretty impressive card. It's one of the most, when you've got 3 spells in your grave, it's one of the most powerful interrupts. Like, taking, as well as negating the effect, taking control of the card is pretty nuts. Did he just do it again?
I'm not sure.
He just drew Metal Foes Fusion off Metal Foes Fusion for the 2nd time.
I didn't see the draw, but I'm going to take your word for it.
It's a Metal Foes Fusion in his hand. That is madness.
Let's have a look at the cards on the table. So Usman activates the instant fusion.
So I'm interested where Usman's going with this, but I don't really know what his deck
Does.
Yeah.
We're going to find
he's drawn
out.
another Sky Blaster, but I guess Sky Blaster just runs into Widow Anchor. So the Sky Blaster isn't going to be able to do its thing. It can try and do its thing, but its thing is gonna be told no. I mean, it might have been worth it on Usman's side, given he's playing against the Sky Striker deck, to wait until his opponent gets to their Link Monster, and then he can use the Kaiju to shut off all the potential Widow Anchors. I mean, he knows there's at least one Widow Anchor, so he can probably predict this is what's going to happen. I'm interested this play didn't happen last turn. I mean, maybe Anthony was anticipating the Kaiju, but other than that, I don't really know why he waited a turn to use the multi-roll on his field spell. Because he could have just had his sort of links. He would have done everything a turn earlier.
Would he be reading that straight away from Usman?
What, that there's a Kaiju?
Yep.
No, definitely not. Like, I mean, he might know that. I mean, it's definitely a card that people can play, but I don't think it's a card that you expect people to have in their main deck. I mean, it's a card that could be in the main deck. I mean, I guess he doesn't. He's got no idea what he's playing against. But what just happened? Didn't he already use the multi-roll?
He's talking to the judges, so...
Yeah, I think the judges may have just spotted that he's already used the multi-roll, and he just tried to use it again. It's a bit odd to have a card where you want to just keep sending all your cards to the graveyard. You don't want them anymore. But yeah, he just tried to use... He just used the multi-roll on the field spell and then tried to use it on another card. But you can't
Which
do that.
no can do.
No can do. It's against the rules. I mean, I guess it's feature match.
He might be a little bit nervous.
Yeah, easy to be a little bit nervous.
He came across a little nervous, but I think he's got a good field, and there's a long way to go in this match, so...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think... I mean, he's probably in a fairly happy situation. Sky Strike is definitely a deck where if the longer the game goes on, the more likely it is to win.
They grind you out, so to speak.
They grind you out. Once they start resolving engages for draws, it just starts to become so hard to get a foothold in the game. I mean, they're like, one of their cards then starts becoming 2. And then if they draw more engages or they start to be able to pick up more engages, then it just starts to become so hard to win.
Yeah, I think Anthony can start to, relax a little and enjoy it a little more. He seems to be picking up the pace and looking at the cards a little less. And
yeah, I guess when he just sort of completely bricked, even with the Pot of Desires.
Yeah, he drew many cards, didn't he?
Yeah,
and he didn't quite see
quite a lot of cards. I mean, drawing the Malphose Fusion off of itself twice.
That's just
completely
unlucky.
Mad.
That's just unlucky.
I mean, drawing Malphose Fusion in the first place is bad enough, but drawing it 3 times.
He's got plenty of cards in his hand, and we can see that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Usman's deck is going to accomplish. Maybe we'll have to see it in a later game. What it's going to do. Some crazy stuff. Because at this point, the thing about Sky Striker deck is if you don't achieve what you want to, then on the next turn they're just going to set it all up again. So you're probably not going to achieve what you want to on the turn after either, because you're going to have less cards and they're going to have more. So the multi-roll just gets it all back. The Shizuku searches and engage for next turn. Multi-roll sets all the cards that you have used this turn. It starts to become, it starts to become unwinnable when they're just they reset everything.
Yep.
As for what
Usman's looking to do,
I
because
don't think he wanted to draw that Garnet, you know. I like the way Garnet has now become a name for a card that you don't want to draw. Even though it's an actual card. Everyone now refers to the cards which you don't want to draw as Garnets. As well as...
is that just a community thing?
Yeah, it's just a name. It's a bit like a Floodgate or something. But Garnet is a Garnet, of course. Unless you're playing Gem Knights, in which case maybe Garnet isn't a Garnet in Gem Knight. But because you might want to draw it, but I don't think you want to draw it.
So he just sets. Looked like he
set
set the
glow
glow-up bulb,
yeah.
and passed.
Yeah, it's whether Anthony wants to sort of play with his food now, I guess.
He had two Phantom Blaster plays, Sky Blaster plays shut down there. So he could. Is he feeling a little bit unfortunate?
I think he's probably feeling just unhappy with his hand, because it doesn't look to me like these are all cards that want to be in the hand. Equally, there's a lot of stuff going on in his deck, so I don't really know what is a sort of good standard opening hand for him. So I guess we'll have to wait and see if it does something more interesting. There's definitely a lot of cards, which generate a lot of monsters. So there is Venus to summon 3 copies of Shine Ball, Lone Fire and the Predaplant Engine, and of course the Sky Blasters to just pump out a load of monsters, as well as Brilliant Fusion for Seraph Knight. So I'm really interested to see it in action. I wonder if he can recycle the Shine Ball somehow. That would be really cool. So in this game at the moment, I guess it's up to Anthony to... He's definitely in control. And traditionally one of the issues with Sky Striker was whether they could close out the game. So one of the problems I had against Trickstar is you could be in control and they wouldn't really be achieving anything, but you'd be taking like little bits of random damage and then you might actually lose the game, even though you are in such control of the game. But now I think with the new tools in the form of Boral Sword and other Link monsters, you start to be able to close out the game a lot more effectively. So you can just summon out a load of monsters and then just turn them into a Boral Sword, and Boral Sword is very good at doing lots of damage.
So it's more of a process and build-up.
No, it's less of a build-up. Now you can just kill your opponent in one turn, which Sky Striker didn't really have the ability to do.
Okay, but you have to get to the Boral Sword.
You do have to get to the Boral Sword, but if you have enough... Like, Sky Striker just sort of generates these infinite resources almost. It just generates so many resources, and it used to be like you could have all these things and you'd just be like, great, I've got some monsters now, how do I actually win the game? And the answer was you attack for 1500 damage a turn. But now you could just, if you get 4 monsters out, you can make Boral Sword, you can attack for 8000 damage in a turn. Whereas before it would just be like, I'll try and attack with what I have. But there weren't really any Link monsters that did loads of damage. He made a little bit of a slip up there, which is a fairly funny one, I guess. So he brought back his opponent's 1000 Eyes Restrict with Shark Cannon, and then he tried to attack. But obviously he's not played with 1000 Eyes. He's not played enough Goat Control format to know that you can't attack. And there's a 1000 Eyes Restrict on the field with anything but the 1000 Eyes Restrict. I did see someone in a side event yesterday, actually, by mistake, Shark Cannon back their opponent's Incantation monster. Do you know what the Incantation monsters do?
No, remind me.
They're the new ritual support, and they have pretty good effects. They're a bit like Manju and Senju, and they search ritual monsters, but they each have effects which say while you control them, you're not allowed to summon from the extra deck. So he brought back a monster, basically just to use the Link material, and hadn't realised he brought back a monster that stopped him from using his extra deck. It's a bit unfortunate.
That seems a bit of a hurdle.
Yeah. I think he just maybe hadn't hadn't read it. I mean, if all you're going to do is bring back the monster and then link it away, you probably don't need to read it. But so Usman going to try and get something going now because the Kaiju sort of grants him a turns passage. But I don't know what he's going to do. He's got 3 monsters, but 3 monsters is not 4 monsters. And 4 monsters is the number to make Saryuja, which he is running many copies of. He's running a full 3 copies of Saryuja, which he wants to make, I guess. But it's probably going to feel good to start summoning some monsters regardless.
And he goes that Phoenix goes for one of the spell and trap cards.
Yeah, so he's going to hit one of the ones that he knew was summoned, not summoned, brought back to the field with multi-roll. But now you can see Anthony having a rather large number of cards in his hand. Probably 7. It's a fairly decent number.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. So we'll see if he can do a little bit more damage than the 0 he did last turn. Hopefully.
So he's got to be feeling quite confident, hasn't he, Anthony, at this point?
Oh,
with all of those
sure.
resources. We've talked about it a little bit, but the longer the match goes on, the more it plays into the Sky Striker's hands.
Yeah, I think Usman's deck is definitely built to be very explosive, so it's not going to be as effective as the Sky Striker in a sort of back and forth grindy game. So we're really seeing like Anthony just, I mean, even though it's kind of going back and forth, I think if you asked Anthony what was going on, he'd be like, yeah, I was in control, you know?
Yep. Pretty content with the current situation, the game state.
So I think he's going to look at that Kagari and say, yep. So all he basically needs to do now, I mean, what we don't know is what has been banished off of the Pot of Desires.
Pot of Desires, yeah.
So if he banished the Hornet drones, for instance, it might make it more difficult for him to access the requisite. He needs to basically just get a few monsters on the field to attack his opponent with, well, just to start doing some damage, really. But realistically, even if he doesn't do the damage very fast, he's in a very controlling position anyway. So I guess what the ability to explosively OTK your opponent adds, because normally the way you do that is with Widow Anchor and you take multiple of your opponent's monsters, but equally you could just you'd have the Widow Anchor as a defensive tool anyway. So, you know, I guess it probably didn't change the outcome of games. It just allows you to finish games that it gives you that extra like 5% of games where your opponent might have drawn something very good in order to get out of a very sticky situation, like a Kaiju to shut off your Widow Anchors for a turn, or something like that. So you just obviously OTKing your opponent, I guess, is the safest way to be in control of a game, right? Even though you might think there's almost nothing they can do. Obviously, if you end the game, then there's definitely nothing they can do. But now he can't actually destroy his opponent's monsters by battle.
And is he at this point? Is there a possibility that there's a best play for him that he's considering? Because he seems to be taking his time in terms of moving towards summoning monsters. And
yeah, I mean, Sky Striker has struggled, I think. Well, at least when I remember playing with it initially, it did seem to be difficult when you'd have all these cards to actually leverage them into doing something cool. You know, actually, you know, turn all these resources into monsters on the field, which then put pressure on your opponent. But now I think he's figuring out a way of doing that. He's going to bring back his opponent's Link Karibo. There you go. And then I don't know what his next. Oh yeah, okay. So I think between these two things, well, let's see. So he's going to take. So that's 4 monsters for a Boral Sword, right there, and the Boral Sword will be able to attack twice. However, I'm not sure if that's 8,000 damage. The Boral Sword just attacking twice by itself, because he doesn't have a ray in his hand. He might be able to search a ray,
but he's definitely making progress towards that boss monster, if you like.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about this plan of action if it's not game, because you don't really want to leave a monster in your main monster zone. So you now have the choice between leaving the Ash in your main monster zone or linking away the Ash, but you'd have to link away the Ash with a Boral Sword.
And it looks like the Boral Sword was enough. So he punches through for game, or was it more that Usman just decided to pick up?
I don't know whether that was game. Maybe I just added it wrong.
But either way, Anthony takes the first game, and it was a bit of a process, but he definitely seemed to be in control throughout that first.
I think, honestly, that solemn strike really shut Usman down, as well as the fact his deck was... I think he drew kind of suboptimally.
Okay.
But I guess we'll find out, and we'll see if his deck can show a bit more of its explosive nature in the second game.
Let's have a look at those side decks as well, as to see what they might be siding into to help.
So what I'm expecting from Anthony, maybe he might sort of mistakenly side in the Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. But maybe not, because he's got Isolde in his extra deck as a target, but he's not got Firewall. So maybe he's expecting to side that, if he had Firewall, it might be kind of a plan to side it in, expecting Usman to rely on Firewall. But it looks like Usman is relying more on Saryuja than Firewall.
Okay.
So that would have been bad. But he doesn't have Firewall in his extra deck, so he's probably not going to side in the Ghost Reaper. So in that case, I don't actually think he's got any hand traps.
Well, they've moved to game 2 really quickly, so there wasn't
I'm not really sure what in Anthony's side deck is going to be helping him in this situation.
But it looks like they're ready to go, so we're just going to load up those hands.
Yes, we are. So I see a Soul Charge in Usman's hand, but I guess other people don't get to see the Soul Charge because I can see more of the screen than them. It's kind of unfair, that, isn't it?
Privileges, Tom, privileges.
Yeah, I can see a Brilliant Fusion, I can see a Soul Charge, I can see a Venus. I think between those three, you're probably quite happy.
Well, I can see that Anthony has Pot of Desires. Yep, it's just being loaded in. He has a copy of Terraforming, which will...
I think Usman's deck is going to get to...
show us what it does.
Yeah, strut its stuff a little bit more. I think this is more of the
Venus
type of hand that he wants to see.
Venus has been a very popular card over the years as well.
Well, yeah, when XYZ Summon came out, people thought Venus was good, but now there's Link monsters. I mean, Venus is a one-card Saryuja, which is pretty insane. Oh god, here we go.
Plenty of cards in that hand.
Well, you do have to put 3 of them back.
You do.
But I'm not sure he's that fussed. Has that nice interaction of putting 3 back to then you can put back... if you draw your Garnet, you can put it back and then you can activate the Brilliant Fusion again. Well, not again, but you could. It stops you having it in your hand.
And we see the Predaplant, is it?
Yeah, the Predaplant engine. I think it's fallen a bit out of popularity without the use of MMX Saber Invoker.
Okay. Very, very powerful.
Very powerful card, but it was
monster.
very nice to... It gives you 2 level 3s, and that was the main line after activating the effect, is you would immediately XYZ an Invoker and then link whatever you summoned off the Invoker. But now we don't have that anymore. So interestingly, like, Saryuja is not once per turn. None of its effects are once. So it's not a hard once per turn even. So multiple Saryujas can be used together, which is very cool. And that is actually what's going to happen. So it's probably worth bearing in mind that he's done all of this without the use of a Soul Charge, even though he started with a Soul Charge.
That Venus really got him going.
Oh god, here we go.
That's a lot of tokens.
This is super cool. So he can make another Saryuja, and this is all without Soul Charge. He's got enough materials just to straight up make Saryuja again. I don't even know what he's looking for at this point. He's drawn 12 cards from his deck. So I think maybe the aim is Christia and Naturia Beast. I don't know what the... So he's definitely got Glow Up Bulb for his...
So I was going to say, so he's really looking to just go off and then build a wall that his opponent, like, to prevent his opponent from doing things from the look of it?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a wall. I would call it... I don't know what I'd call it. But, it's going to stop his opponent from playing. Because he's going to have And Naturia Beast, and there's the Soul Charge.
And there go the crowd.
The crowd
goes,
seem to be enjoying it.
the crowd really enjoying that one.
I mean, when you've drawn 12 cards, you do get to see the Soul Charge. That does seem fair enough.
And here we go again. Lots of materials.
So this is gonna. Is he gonna make Barkion and Beast? Oh, that's just brutal. I thought he was just making Beast. He's gonna make Naturia Barkion as well. Oh my god!
This is an
And
amazing field. This is an absolutely amazing field. Christia, Sayuja, and both Barkion and Beast. And there's the handshake from Anthony. Usman taking game 2.
Why not?
Absolutely explosive. Absolutely explosive.
That was pretty sick. I was seeing the Nat Beast. I hadn't even seen the Barkion as well.
It's
Why just stop your opponent from playing spells when you can stop them from playing traps too?
I think that's exactly what Usman had in mind the whole time.
He's even got the Ib to prevent your opponent from Ghost Ogring the Nat Beast. Because that's basically the only out, is Ghost Ogre on Nat Beast for turn, drawing Ghost Ogre on Nat Beast. But with Ib can prevent that by sacrificing itself. So, as far as I can tell, basically, I mean the Sky Striker deck at least. Well, he had Meteon actually.
Well, they've set us up perfectly, Tom. We're going to game 3. We've seen exactly what both decks do. You see that explosive side from Usman. They're bringing him back into the match, but Anthony with the Sky Striker deck taking it in the first instance. We're about to find out what they're going to do in this game 3.
Usman's got a really cool side deck package. He's siding in all the Mech Knights.
Okay.
So I guess if he knows he's going to go second, you side in those Mech Knights, and they're very explosive cards going second.
He looks like he's doing exactly that, Tom.
Well, I am cheating. I do see his deck.
No, you see his deck list, but it also looks like that's exactly what he's doing in terms of the additional camera that we can see.
Yeah, that is true. I'd be interested to see. I don't really think Anthony's got anything that exciting in his side deck to deal with. He has got this Sanctum and Scythe, I guess, which is pretty mean.
Usman's frantically looking through.
It's interesting to see him side out the Soul Charge. Or maybe he's not sided out the Soul Charge. No, it looks like he sided out the Soul Charge. He's siding out his entire fairy package.
And Anthony just looks content. He's looking ready to go to this third game here for this match. And
it's nice to see him appreciating the what Usman's deck did.
Yeah, I think that was.
It's nice to see something novel. Like, I think the FTK deck is cool, but it feels cheap, and enough people are doing it that you just don't want it to happen to you. Whereas when someone ends their turn with a Beast Bark, it's because this is not something you've seen for a while. It's probably just like, all right, that's fairly cool. I'll give you that one.
And the Christia.
I mean, if he hadn't milled another Christia with the glow up bulb, he would have just been able to summon it with its own effect and add back a Venus to his hand.
Pretty impressive stuff.
Pretty impressive stuff. I quite liked it.
That's been quite a highlight, actually. In particular, the Beast against such a deck as Sky
Oh,
Striker.
yeah. Beast against Sky Striker is almost
just
enough to win by itself. I mean, Anthony did have 6 spells in his hand.
Yep. So it was like he wasn't going to play any of those.
No, he was not. And I'm guessing Anthony's going to choose to go first.
Yes. After that experience,
I
can imagine that he wants to play a card.
It was quite nice to see all of the massive turbo cards in sequence. Like, first you play the Venus, then you play the Predaplants, then you play the Sky Blaster.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
And then you play the Soul Charge.
So here we go. I see a lot of green cards in Usman's hand.
I don't think he wants that many green cards. I think he wants some orange ones. He likes the effect monsters. Whereas Anthony does like the green ones.
So our judges are still loading in for Anthony.
I can see a Scythe in his hand, and a Scythe is a Sanctum, and a Sanctum is really brutal.
Is that a Solemn Strike? Did I see?
And a Solemn Strike. This is a very, very. I think if Anthony could have picked his hand,
this is the card.
It wouldn't be far off. Like, This is an incredibly powerful hand right here. He's got, he's got engine cards and defense. He's got like reasonable engine plus reasonable defense.
Reinforce.
You can't take reinforcements.
He's gone
with
with the
army
Widow
dog.
Anchor. No, but I like that card.
But you're
but
not
he's gone
allowed
with the
to.
Widow Anchor.
Doesn't say Sky Striker on it. You know they printed a Sky Striker Heavy Storm, Sky Striker Pot of Greed. You can search them with Engage as well.
Sorry, what do they do?
What do they do? I don't know. You can't just put Sky Striker in front of things.
Is he gonna set? He is. He's gonna set all of them nearly. 3 cards to the.
I think.
And then he gets that search.
He does get that search. So Usman's really going to be looking hard at that.
He draws the Lone Fire. Is that Lone Fire?
He is definitely Lone Fire. I'm not sure why he gave his opponent the Gamma Seal, because that means his hand now can't do anything.
Discards a copy of Call by the Grave for that Twin Twisters.
Ooh. He's done well there. One of those was a Sanctum. What does Lone Fire get that's not a Predaplant in his deck? Are we going to see a Titanial? What do you think? He seems to know what he's doing. Oh, I see. He had the Foolish Burial to search. Aha. Very unfortunately
He's
for
really moving
him.
through it, isn't he? He seems quite content.
Anthony's remaining card is an Artifact Sanctum, which is really not what he wants, because that's going to shut up. He's probably hoping the Kaiju is sufficient to stop Anthony from interrupting him. However, is definitely not sufficient to stop Anthony from interrupting him, because Anthony has got the Sanctum, I believe. Yeah, here we go. A sort of boos from the crowd. I think they were hoping to see something cool. Yeah, there you go. They are actually
they're
booing.
not happy with that, are they?
They're not happy. They're Anthony just spoiling the fun right there. Think about all the fun that could have been had. But instead, Scythe says no fun. It's just no fun at all, Scythe. He has got the Brilliant Fusion for next turn, I guess. But as for whether he'll probably have a next turn, because he's playing against Sky Striker, and Sky Striker aren't very good at ending the game on any given turn, but they do make it very hard for you to win on the next turn. Honestly, if I'm Usman right here, I banish that side just so there's no chance it can come back. But I mean, maybe banishing the Ray is the more sensible choice. I don't think Sky Striker really have a way of reusing the side, but I would be sufficiently annoyed at the side. It probably makes more sense to banish the Ray, but it doesn't stop Anthony from summoning more copies of Ray. It does become quite hard once Anthony's got monsters on the field, to access his Sky Striker Link engine and start using it effectively. So ideally you just want to have the one Link 1 Sky Striker monster on the field, and he's been forced to put more monsters on the field. But in any event, once you start resolving engages for draws, it starts to become a very uphill battle for your opponent. So we're going to have to wait and see. So he's just getting rid of his own monsters. He's just got rid of both of his own monsters.
Yeah, I'm just looking at what's the trap card in his hand, Tom?
What's the trap card?
Did he have a trap card in his hand?
He does. It's a Solemn Strike.
It is a Solemn Strike. I'm just having trouble loading the graveyard here, and I can't remember.
Well, there's one relevant card in his graveyard which is going to pick up now, called Engage.
Yes.
That's going to turn into another Sky Striker card and yet another card from his deck, which is sad times if you are Usman. So we know Usman's remaining card in his hand is just the Brilliant Fusion. Brilliant Fusion is a pretty explosive card, but I think it requires more cards to be used in combination with it, especially when you're staring down.
And how's this match going? How do you think this is going? Is this going in favour of Anthony? Is this going in favour of Usman?
I think this is going for Anthony at the moment.
There's a lot of tension and there's a lot of murmuring in the crowd here. I think they're getting quite anxious as to see as to how this might go.
Well, I think the Sanctum seriously put a spanner in the works for Usman. I think he was probably thinking, you know,
he was looking to push.
Yeah, he hit the strike with the twisters and then had the kaiju. So between those two, it's like you're really hoping that the Sky Striker deck's not going to be able to interrupt you. And then the scythe came down, and that really it just says no for a turn. But the Sky Striker deck is showcasing its sort of inability to clear a board up that effectively. So I think this is really like this turn is probably Usman's last chance to make a push.
Is there something in particular that's going to help with that? What's he looking for?
What's he looking for? What's in his deck? Venus is no longer an option. Honestly, I think the Sky Blaster is probably the best draw. A second copy of Brilliant Fusion is probably the worst draw.
Okay.
With the exception of a Gem Knight Garnet, if I'm going to be honest. Because he just can't use the second Brilliant Fusion. It's just a completely dead card. I mean, Gem Knight Garnet would have prevented him from using the first Brilliant Fusion, which would have been even worse, possibly. I don't know what good light monsters he's got to send now that he's used his Trick Clown. So I guess we'll wait and see. He might just dump a Mech Knight in order to resolve.
Well, we see one Gem Knight
or a
Christia.
Why not? But I don't think it's...
He's having deep...
He's going to be able to get it out of the graveyard and into somewhere he can use it.
Yeah, he's having a real deep think about how he might be able to...
I mean, that Seraph Knight is in attack mode, which makes me feel like his plan is to discard the other Brilliant Fusion in his hand in order to give it 2300 extra attack. And if that's your plan, it's probably not going well. But maybe that's not his plan. Maybe he's got a better plan.
See the Phoenix. Anthony having a Widow Anchor.
He's deciding to keep the strike. So yeah, I think whatever Link monster he makes now gets swallowed into a Solemn Strike.
Yep.
Yeah. Sad times.
Yeah, that was a big play from Anthony there. Was Usman reading that, do you think?
I don't know if he was making any reads at this point. I think he was just playing his last cards.
Yep. He's just looking to make plays to push and get back in.
Indeed. I'm not sure. You can't really afford to make some. If you have more cards, the game's more complicated. You might try and make reads, but when you've only got like 2 cards or whatever, you just got to play.
You just need to play and see how you get on.
Yeah, so now it's over to Anthony, and I guess we'll see if he can finish the game in some amount of style and manage to drop
Conviction.
the requisite 6,500 on this turn. But if he wants to take the lazy man's way out, he can just set up like multiple Widow Anchors and pass back to his opponent. But I don't think that's his plan.
I think Usman's
his
aware
plan is to
as
go
to
for the throat, yeah.
Yep.
So that token can get converted into any Link monster, and then that's 4 monsters into a Boral Sword. And then Boral Sword
building up.
plus Ray is 7,500 damage,
So
which is more than
up.
6,000.
And there it is. So
There we go.
And there it is. Anthony takes the game 2-1. Bit of back and forth. Sky Strikers takes the matchup. We saw that first game go through to Anthony with the Boral Sword, and again in the third game. Let's talk about it a bit more in our post-match analysis. So there we have it. Anthony takes the match 2-1. Bit of a build-up in that first and third game, but he managed to put Boral Sword on the field and attack for heavy damage. Game 2, we saw we saw Usman come back with what was an absolutely explosive play.
That was probably the coolest.
There is no other word than explosive. He goes into all sorts of fusion.
3 Saryujas, yeah.
Saryuja. He summons the two synchro
Beast
monsters.
Christia. I mean, why not?
It was amazing, and the Archlord Christia to fit as well. Then again, it goes back to
That was super cool.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I don't want to be rude to Anthony. He did win. His deck performed better, but he's kind of throwing cold water over everything. Just like, you know what? I'm going to play my Sanctum now, and you're not going to do that this time.
and it was evident that there was a lot of energy in the room. Everybody was excited after seeing Usman come back into the game in that manner. But unfortunately, in the end, Anthony takes it, and
well, not unfortunately, but unfortunately from an entertainment perspective.
Exactly.
Maybe not from Anthony's perspective.
There we have it. Without further ado, let's head over to Oliver Gurman. He's standing by with Anthony, and we are ready for the player interview at the feature match area.
Move back. Hello guys, with our last interview for the day. We can tell everybody wants to get out, so people are speeding up a little bit. Anthony, what was that like? What was the feature match like for you?
Well, it was a bit difficult because like the changes to like how the setup is, like, you know, having to wear headphones and it's like all that stuff, like it makes the entire experience really different. And like I totally played that games 1 and 3, both of the ones I won, terribly, right? Like, I apologize to all the viewers at home.
It's all right. Can you blame them that they were actually rooting for Usman a little bit when they saw that second game?
I thought that second game was hilarious, right? I have a friend, his name is Henry, and he loves Christia, so he would have been like the same. He would have been like jumping up and screaming.
All over it, yeah. So it doesn't feel too bad losing, but still, you take the first game, you lose the second game. What is happening in your head? How do you prepare for the final duel?
I have Scythe and Sanctums, and I have Mattyon in my in there, and I was thinking on like whether I should side in Mattyons just in case I draw badly, and I kind of like would have, but I didn't really have like many good cards to side out, so I just kept putting the Scythes in Sanctum, and it worked. It worked all right, yeah. So like it's all right. I'm not like 100% certain. Like I played like any of the like anything in that game right. Like you could probably pick apart my game. It's like awful, but you know, like yeah. Like it's at the end of the day, so I'm just happy to get home, really.
All right. Yeah. What is the plan? How do you prepare for tomorrow? Like, what do you do this evening?
Probably early night, eat in, you know, staying at my friend's house, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem, you know. So, yeah, that's everything really. I think it's not really don't overcomplicate things, you know.
How important is the extra hour of sleep thanks to the time difference?
Well, I had 3 hours of sleep on Friday and like 5 last night, so like the extra hour of sleep will come in handy, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Well, you're now on the bubble. You can move on to the top 32. How do you think your deck is gonna fare once we get to the top 32?
If I avoid all of the Danger FTK decks and the Thunder Dragon decks, then I'll have a decent chance. But otherwise, like, you know, you just have to play each match as it comes. Really, you can't take too much for granted or anything. So. All
right. Guys, that was it for day number 1 of the YCS in London. It's the 4th time we're here at the MCM Comic Con. We're growing every single time we're here. This time more than 1,600 players. All of us really feel like going home right now. We're all a little bit excited. So we're going to take a longer break. We're going to start tomorrow at 9 a.m. But you just heard it. We do have a time difference. If that does not happen in your time zone, you will need to adjust your clock accordingly. And I really can't run you through that because it depends on where you're living. So right now it is 9:30 over here. So it would be 11.5 hours, but thanks to the time difference, we're going to be back in 12.5 hours if you don't have a time shift. So like I said, a bit complicated, but you're going to figure it out. With that, before anybody casts another multiply on me and I'm just going to be drowning in Kuribos, we're signing off from day number 1 of YCS London, and we're going to see you very bright and early tomorrow morning. Have a good night, everyone, and see you very soon.